Hola, it's Beto here, your daily divinity coach, here for episode number 37 of my weekly series, Sunday Weekly Revival. If you're watching the recorded video, go ahead and fast forward a few minutes. I'm going to tag some folks so we can get a live audience going here. So just tagging some nice live audience going for today's show. So again, if you're watching the recorded video, feel free to go ahead and fast forward a few minutes while I tag some friends here. Just gonna tag some friends and we'll get started soon. Just want to make sure we got a nice live audience here for today's episode number 37 of my weekly series, Sunday Weekly Revival. Just again tagging some friends here, letting them know that we're live and that we're available to be joined. So just give me a couple minutes, make sure that our friends know we're live, and again, just tagging some friends here, and we'll get started soon. I see here that mentioned that they'd be watching live, so just want to let them know that we're here live and that we're starting with today's episode 37. Just a couple more people that I want to make sure that I tag here. And we'll get started soon. Okay, see who else is. Yep, want to tag. Be available to join live. We'll go ahead and get started soon here. Okay, I think that's good. All right, we already got some people. So, Lazy Nadia, if you can throw some hearts up in the air, let me know that my sound is working. Just a quick sound check. Some heart. Yeah, looks like they're going up. Perfect. Thumbs up. Awesome. Thank you so much. So, okay, looks like we're back on. It looked like there's some technical difficulties, but thanks again for the sound check. So if you're watching the recorded video, feel free to go ahead and fast forward a few minutes because I'm going to give a brief introduction, and this is going to give some people time to go ahead and join us because I just tagged some folk and let us know that are coming on and joining us. So, but please, if you're watching the recorded video, feel free to go ahead and forward a couple minutes, especially if you've already heard my introduction. So again, my name is Beto. Everybody called me Beto. I'm your daily divinity coach, and this is episode number 37 of my weekly series, Sunday Weekly Revival. Episode number 37 is entitled Cornel West, Saved, and it's a movie, Saved, that's a movie title, and the Rhythm and the Rise of All in Spirituality. Today is Sunday, March 28th, 2021. For some, many, depending on your demographic and where you live, this is celebration of Palm Sunday. And if you have any questions about me or want to learn more, there's my website right there, dailydivinitycoach.com. So just a little bit about daily. I post daily on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. That's why I call myself the Daily Divinity Coach. About a paragraph written. So I do that every day. And then every week, I'm here live. Actually starting on Instagram Live at 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Then 35 minutes, I flip over to Facebook Live, and I'm here with you every Sunday on Facebook Live at 8:35 a.m. PT, 11:35 a.m. ET. PT, where I used to be from, or where I'm from, California. ET, where I live now in Boston. So yeah, here every Sunday for Sunday Weekly Revival. The first Sunday of the month, though, I do my monthly mailbags. I'm still here live, but what I do is I take your pre-submitted questions and I provide thoughtful responses. And next week is the first Sunday of the month. It's actually for some, many, depending on your demographic and where you live, it's going to be Easter Sunday. But I will be here live. So if you have any questions, pre-submit those questions and I can use them on next week's show. What else do? I produce bands. These are rubber bracelets. I know it's hard to see, but there's a blue one that reads Manifest Abundance, a gray one that reads Manifest Justice, and a black one that reads Manifest Immortality. I produce them and I give them away for free, and shipping's free, always in the U.S. and until the end of the month, so soon here in North America and Europe. So if you haven't received your free set of, reach out. I just need a name and an address. Reach out and text me, DM me. You can pull that in order form on my website, dailydivinitycoach.com, and I'll ship you out the bracelets. We've already shipped out several hundred and still have more to ship out. So, yeah. I also do one-on-one divinity coaching. So if you want to set up a time to talk for 45 minutes, we can provide scientific prayer. So if you have a prayer request, send it over. My prayer partner is my mom, and we'll pray for your request. She was actually asking the other day, why aren't we getting more requests? I said, I guess I haven't been letting people know enough. So I want to make sure I get that out there. My mom taught me, tutored me in the law of attraction since the age of 10. She's still my law of attraction coach. And so I talk about the law of attraction, law of abundance, right? Being limitless. That's one of the topics I talk about. I also talk about liberation theology, social justice, and that's something I learned in school. I started in undergrad, but mainly in seminary at Harvard Divinity School, where I studied with Cornel West, right? We're going to talk about Cornel West and others. And I also talk about immortality or being ageless. And that really was a culmination of a 10-year self-study, really what I call street smarts, just reflecting on things I'd learned, ancient texts, ancient wisdom, that type of thing, and kind of put things together. So, but anyhow, we're going to go ahead. I think that was enough, gave enough people time to join that brief introduction, and we're going to go ahead and start going with the content of today's show. I want to start by saying we stand in solidarity with the women of Turkey. I don't know if you're aware of this. It's Women's History. Last Friday at midnight, the president of Turkey, Erdogan, issued a decree annulling Turkey's ratification of the Istanbul Convention on Violence Against Women. The convention was actually in his country, and it's gone throughout Europe, but it was in his country in Turkey where they ratified it, and he annulled it. The convention against violence against women. And so right away, women and the supporters took to the streets, and they've been protesting, right, saying that correctly, righteously so, the Istanbul Convention saves lives. It was reported just last year, 2020, that at least 300 women were killed, murdered, mostly by their partners. So you might be wondering, as I did, why would anybody be against this, right? If it's saving lives, right? Violence toward women, it's deplorable. Domestic violence. Why would anybody be against it? Why would he do this? Well, this is what the opponents of the Istanbul Convention say, that they complain it encourages divorce and may lead to gay marriage. So it's really about what we call dominion theology. Which is having dominion over others, right? Having dominion, right? Men having dominion over women, whites having dominion over everybody else. So it's this whole, thing of dominion theory, dominion theology, and which dominion just evil. There's no other way to say it. It's evil. We're not supposed to have dominion over others. That's satanic. But that's where it comes from, and we're going to be talking more about dominion theology as we go. So we stand in solidarity with the women of Turkey. So Cornel West, we're going to talk about Cornel West. He was my advisor at Harvard Divinity School. And when I was doing my research, I came across one description of Cornel West that really stood out to me. And it was this. It was written by Time Magazine. And Time Magazine describes Cornel West as one complex dude. Brilliant scholar, political activist, committed Christian, and soul brother to the bone. Very eloquent. I love that description. It really speaks to Cornel West's essence. Cornel West was born in 1953 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But he didn't grow up in Tulsa. He grew up in Sacramento. And he'll tell you, he's a California kid. He grew up in Northern California. Cornel West is a philosopher, a public, very important, the word public intellectual. He's always in public, and a political activist. He is the grandson of a Baptist preacher. His granddaddy was a Baptist preacher. His dad was a PK, a preacher's kid. But his dad never became a preacher, nor did Cornel. Cornel West says that people think he's ordained and they think he's licensed, but he's not. He describes himself as a teacher that has a preacherly style. A teacher that has a preacherly style, but not a teacher. If you're wondering about his mother was an educator too. But at the K to 12 level, she was a teacher and a principal, was his mother. Couple popular quotes from Cornel West. One, you can't lead the people if you don't love the people. People who don't love the people try, right? Like Erdogan and Trump and other people like that. But Cornel West, he's pure, right? He's righteous. He says you can't lead the people if you don't love the people. So going back to the dominion theology, those people are trying to control the people, right? The lords of scarcity, as I like to call them, they're trying to control the people. They're not trying to lead the people. They're not leading with love, right? It's about control and hate and dominion and evil. And Satanism, it's satanic is what it is. It's evil. So anyhow, in high school, Cornel West was student body president of his high school. He was a straight A student. Probably not a surprise, but he was a straight A student. He was also an athlete. He ran cross country track. He set the record for the city in the 2-mile race. He was also a musician. He's a concert maestro's first violin, and he also marched as a civil rights activist. So he was accomplished while still in high school. He was doing a lot of things. He describes himself, he provides a lot of descriptions of himself, and this is one that I really like. He says, I'm a blues man in the life of the mind. I'm a blues man in the life of the mind, a jazz man in the world of ideas. His favorite musician is John Coltrane, and when I was in class with him, he'd always talk, he'd always find a way to bring John Coltrane in, right, into the conversation. And that actually inspired me to sell or convince or persuade she's my ex-wife now, but my wife at the time, for us to name our son, who's my youngest son, Coltrane, after John Coltrane. So my youngest son is named after John Coltrane, but it's inspired because Cornel West would always bring up John Coltrane in his conversations, his lectures, teachings, and whatnot. He graduated, so after high school, he left Sacramento, came out east, here where I, just down the street from where I live. I'm in Cambridge, just across the river from Boston. He came out here to Harvard University, and he graduated magna cum laude from Harvard in 3 years. So moves from California to Boston, like I did. I left California, came to Boston, and graduated Harvard in 3. Can you imagine? Arguably the top university in the nation, if not the world. Done in 3 years. It's supposed to be 4. He got it in 3. That shows you how committed he was. He says at Harvard he was inspired by the Black Panther Party, but he never joined. He never joined the Black Panther Party, yet he was inspired. He did work in a prison program, which I didn't know about that until I actually got out here and met him and talked to him and found out that he was also involved in doing work in prisons, because I came out with all this prison ministry experience, right? So we had that in common. We could talk about. He also, inspired by the Black Panther Party, he worked in a breakfast program, right? Getting hot breakfast out to kids, and he also co-led Sunday school. After Harvard, he went down to New Jersey, and he got his master's and his PhD from Princeton University, another Ivy League institution. He was actually the first African American to graduate from Princeton with a PhD in philosophy. He has served as a tenured professor at Harvard, Princeton, Yale, right, all Ivy League institutions, as well as Union Theological Seminary in New York City. Very accomplished, and the man's prolific. He's written 20 books, including the classics Race Matters, which was originally released in 1993. Some books say 94, but originally in 93, as well as the book, classic book, Democracy Matters. So those were 2 of his classics. But he's written 20. He's also edited 13 books. So again, prolific. And he also travels all the time. Like, it's rare that he's in town on a weekend. He's usually traveling, giving a lecture at a union hall, or at a school or at a church. He's always doing something. He's meeting with a prime minister of this country, or a diplomat of that country. He's always on the go. he's always fielding requests, right, to talk, and he'll go out on marches, right? He was in Charlottesville. Was it back in 2017, August 2017, if I'm not mistaken? He was there marching. He's always out doing something. He's also, again, always in the public eye. He's on TV. You can see him on the TV. He appears frequently. I used to get HBO. I don't get it anymore. But he appears frequently on the Bill Maher show. If you get HBO, on CNN, he's on CNN a lot with Don Lemon and the others. They're on CNN. He's on C-SPAN, and he's also appears frequently on the Travis Smiley's PBS TV show. So he's regularly on TV. He's also been on the big screen. He appeared in the Hollywood sci-fi movies, the action movies Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Revolutions, which were both released in 2003. They're within 6 months of each other. Pretty amazing. Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Revolutions. He appeared in those movies. He has 3 spoken word albums, including Never Forget is the title of one of them. And on Never Forget, he collaborated with Prince, right? The musical artist Prince. I talk about Prince because Prince didn't celebrate birthdays. He also collaborated with KRS-One. Do you remember KRS-One? I actually seen KRS-One give a lecture when I was an undergrad. He collaborated with Jill Scott. Andre 3000, remember Andre 3000? Talib Kweli, and the late Gerald Levert. So collaborated with big pop icons, right? Not the least of which was Prince. Here's another way that Cornel describes himself. He says, "I am a profoundly Jesus-loving, free black man who bears witness to truth and justice." Truth and justice are very, very important to Cornel West. He's mission driven. He's about speaking truth and justice, particularly to power structures. So anyway, Cornel West, back in 2002, he was a Harvard University professor. He ended up leaving Harvard, a tenured position. He was actually the top of the top. I mean, he was the cream of the crop. He was one of only 22 of 2,000 Harvard University professors who were designated Harvard University professors. But he had a rift. He ended up having a public rift with the president of Harvard University at that time. The then university president of Harvard was Larry Summers. And in 2002, Cornel West chose to go ahead and leave Harvard. And so anyway, when he talks about this, or when he talked about it, he says that Summers accused him of missing classes, which he says is incorrect, is completely false. But more to the point, what Summers did, he also said this to West. He said, "You're deeply involved in hip hop, and it's an embarrassment." He called it an embarrassment, and so West shot back, "Embarrassment to who?" And then Summers said, "Well, I don't want you, having to do anything with hip hop." And so West said, "Well, no, I'm a free black man. I do what I want. I do what I want to do." I mean, the guy's, university tenured professor, like, again, the cream of the crop, and Summers, all about domination and whatnot. So anyhow, Summers said, "Well, I want to meet with you regularly. I want to monitor your work. I want to monitor your scholarship." And West is like, "I don't put up with disrespect." And so West chose to leave, right? He wasn't going to be disrespected in that way. So he ended up leaving. And he returned to Princeton. He went back to Princeton. This is the amazing thing about West, is that he doesn't just talk the talk, he walks the walk. He calls everybody his brother and sister. And he really believes that it comes from his heart. And he has publicly forgiven Summers for what transpired between them. For Summers really pushing him out of Harvard. And he says he prays for him. He prays for Larry Summers. And I believe him. I mean, this is who he is. He said, though, he was also surprised when then U.S. President Barack Obama chose Summers as his national security advisor, or not security, national economic advisor. And he says he was surprised because, he supported back in 2008. He got behind Obama and he's a big supporter. But Obama kind of sold himself to West as being a progressive. And West knows Summers, is the opposite, right? He's not a progressive at all. He's all about domination. And so he said that he was surprised because, how could, somebody who professed themselves to be a progressive, would lift up somebody like Summers, who has no history whatsoever of sensitivity to poor people, to working people, and make that person his national economic advisor. So, but West said that, reflecting on what took place there with Summers, West, reflecting, he says, Harvard has a vicious, use the word vicious, a vicious anti-black, anti-Jewish, anti-woman, homophobic tradition. Yet, he also says, he qualifies, he said, yet Harvard also has has critiques of white supremacy and anti-Semitism and whatnot. So that's what, that's, part of his reflection on what happened there, at Harvard the first time around. Because what then happened is that West ended up returning. He came back to Harvard in 2016. And this time, though, he wasn't appointed as a tenured professor. He took a non-tenured appointment back with Harvard Divinity School and also teaching in the Department of African and African American Studies. And so he's been here for 5 years now, but he just recently announced earlier this month that he's leaving Harvard. He's leaving Harvard again. And so why is he leaving again? What happened this time, right? Summers not around no more. The then president, back in 2002 when West left the first time, not around no more. So what happened this time? Well, he was denied tenured. So he came in, without tenure and figured, I was, one of the 22 university professors. I was tenured. I've been tenured at Union, at Yale, at Princeton, and even here at Harvard. They're going to give me tenure, right? I mean, matter of factly, they should. But he was denied. After 5 years, he was denied. And so what he was told was it's too risky, that he's too controversial. And so why would this, this amazing, brilliant scholar, this public intellectual, right? One of the top scholars of his time. Why would he be considered too controversial or too risky? And West says this. He says that there's certain taboo subjects or issues you don't talk about at Harvard. They exist, and one of them is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which he is outspoken about. He talks about how Palestinian babies and Jewish babies and all babies, are equal in his eyes. And so he talks about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and he believes that's the reason why, that he was considered controversial or too risky, and more to the point that the donors of Harvard, they don't like that, right? They don't like that. And so he says that, at the end of the day, Harvard's selling out. They're selling out the souls of the students to appease the donors. Powerful words, powerful critique of the university. So since he announced, when all this was happening and he was, about to announce his resignation, it was either shortly before or shortly after, there was a petition, and it was signed by 90 organizations at Harvard, including, and the petition was in support of West, right? In support of West for him to stay and be granted tenure. And this petition included Jewish groups on campus, including the Jewish Coalition for Peace. So there's a lot of people, a lot of groups got behind West, but to no avail, right? He's going to leave. So there's been outrage, right? People have spoken publicly about this. So I looked at some of the comments and I picked a couple. So one was UCLA. I wanted, a lot of people watch from California, so I wanted to bring somebody up from California. So UCLA Professor Robin D.G. Kelly. She's chastised Harvard for not granting West tenure, who she calls undeniably the leading American public intellectual of my generation. Harvard's own history professor Walter Johnson has called it another disaster for Harvard. So Cornel West leaving Harvard, again, another disaster for Harvard. So he'll be returning to Union Theological Seminary. So he's going back to New York City, going back to what he calls home. He says, I'm going back home. And he says, I don't have to be worked like a mule. But underpaid and undervalued at Harvard, those days are over. So he's going back to Union. And so Reverend Dr. Serene Jones, the president of Union Theological School, is obviously elated to have West back, and says that they're devoted, Union and West are devoted to the same prophetic message. And then she says this too, if you could give 3 times or 4 times tenure, that West would definitely, she said he would be coming back with quadruple tenure, right? This is how much they value Cornel West there at Union Theological Seminary in New York City, which he'll be returning to. So going to shift gears a little bit and talk briefly about the rhythm of all in spirituality, because part of the title of this episode is the rhythm of all in spirituality. So when I was graduating from Harvard Divinity School, Cornel West said this to me. He said, Brother Beto, and he called everybody brother and sister. He says, Brother Beto, you have charisma. He said, you need to be in front of people. And I didn't think it would take this long, but those words prove prophetic. It's taken a couple decades. It took 2 decades. It took the advent of Instagram Live and Facebook Live, and it also took a global pandemic. But here I am. I'm in front of people like he prophesied. But the rhythm, right? The rhythm of all in spirituality, really, it comes from West. It's rooted in what I learned from Cornel West, and it's because looking and learning on how Dr. West fuses ancient text, ancient wisdom, culture, current events, right? Political current events, as well as pop culture, and he fuses all of these things together, and that's where the rhythm comes from, because that's what I try and do to the best of my abilities on these shows, right? Sunday Weekly Revival is to mesh those together: ancient wisdom, ancient text, current events, pop culture, right? We talked about current event, what's going on in Turkey. But yes, that's where the rhythm comes from. It really comes from what I learned from Cornel West. Where does the rise come from, right? Because I also mentioned the rise. Where does the rise of all in spirituality come from? And it comes from what I mentioned earlier, the reaction to dominion theology, right? Nobody should have or even desire dominion over anybody else. No man should desire dominion over no woman. No white person dominion over no person of color. It's evil. It's evil. And, one of the cruxes, one of the pillars, or the pillar of all in spirituality, is that we're all, right? We are all created in the image of the divine. We're equals, right? We're all created in the image of the divine to be ageless, liberated, and limitless. So that's where it comes from. There was also a prophetic message too when I was starting this. I work on social media, because I was like 19 months ago, I didn't even have an Instagram account. I only used Facebook to post pictures of me and my son at his rugby tournaments, or when we go to rugby games and stuff like that. So I didn't know what Facebook Live was, with Instagram Live. I had to learn all of this. And if you go back to my early episodes, you'll see that I had to learn a lot. I really didn't know anything about much of anything about this stuff that I'm doing now. But there was a prophetic message. It actually came from my mom's youngest sister, my tia Irma, the youngest sister, and she provided a prophetic message one day, and she said that it's time, right? The message was, it's time, and you have everything you need in front of your face. And so, like any prophetic message, I had to or not any, but a lot, I had to decipher it. What does that mean? I got everything in front of my face. I understood what it's time means, you know, like Cornel West said, you know, to be in front of the people. It's time to be in front of the people. But what do you mean I have everything I need in front of my face? Well, it ended up being the phone. Like, you know, I slept on it and I thought about it, and then all of a sudden, you know, the revelation came. Oh my God, I do. Everything I need is right here. It's the phone. And then that's when, you know, I started learning about Instagram. That's when I learned about Facebook Live and Instagram Live and stuff like that. So that was part of the rise of All In Spirituality. And so now shifting gears again and talking about bringing pop culture in, a reference from pop culture. So there's a 2004 movie called Saved, right? And Saved with an exclamation, I missed it there. Saved with an exclamation point. And I don't know if you saw it or not. It was a sleeper hit. It grossed $9 million. It had a small budget, grossed $9 million domestically. Again, 2004 is a teen movie, and it was also a religious satirical comedy. And it starred Mandy Moore, Jenna Malone, and Macaulay Culkin. I hope I got that right. So yeah, there's some, you know, stars in the movie. And again, it was a sleeper hit. And so although I mentioned this last week, although I spent most of my K-12 education in public schools, there was a few years where I attended Christian schools. I actually attended Valley Christian High School for a short spell, which in the San Francisco Bay Area became a powerhouse of high school football. Back when I was there, though, it wasn't a powerhouse. But anyway, this movie Saved, although the characters are really caricatures, it did resonate with me because I had a little bit of that experience at a Christian school. So the plot of the movie Saved, again, the 2014 movie, there's this character named Mary, and she's entering her senior year of high school, Mary is, and she's got a boyfriend named Dean. And one day, I believe they're at the swimming pool, and Dean confesses to Mary that he's gay. And so Mary, I think she ends up hitting her head. And anyway, she has this epiphany that she's going to save Dean, right? She's going to save Dean. And so she's going to do it by having relations with him in the biblical sense, right? And that Jesus is going to, you know, miraculously, Dean's not going to be gay anymore, and that miraculously Mary is going to have her purity restored as though, you know, they never engaged in those relations. All absurd, right? I mean, but it's a religious satirical comedy, right? But all absurd. So anyway, so they engage in these relations in the biblical sense. It doesn't work because it was absurd to begin with, and Dean's still gay. And then later on, a little bit later in the movie, Dean's parents discovered that he's gay. And so sadly, Dean's parents end up banishing him. They send him to this place called Mercy House. What is Mercy House? Mercy House is this. It's a treatment center for, you know, young people who abuse or, you know, have addictions with alcohol. It's a treatment center for, you know, alcohol and drugs. But it's also a place of banishment. So, you know, kids who live in these, you know, quote unquote Christian households, where, you know, they don't believe, they believe gay is a sin, and, you know, crazy things like that. They send these kids to Mercy House, right, to banish them, to, you know, because they don't want them to have influence and negatively, again, absurd, negatively influence other kids. And they also send pregnant teens, right? Pregnant teens also get sent to Mercy House because they banish them. They don't want them, you know, influencing other teens and stuff like that. And it's just, it's sad, it's awful, it's disgusting. But you know, again, this is a religious satirical comedy. So, you know, there's things in the movie that are sad, but they're also funny. And that's that's the purpose of the movie. So anyhow, Mary, her friend, she's part of this group called the Christian Jewels. They're like the head clique of the school, these three girls, and she's part of this clique. She ends up leaving the clique when they, you know, everybody finds out, the school finds out Dean's been banished, that he's gay, and, you know, everybody's saying really nasty, negative things about Dean and his sexuality, and you know, Mary's caught up in the middle, and she starts questioning her faith. Like, I thought Christianity was about love, and, you know, how can it be about love when they talk about Dean, my, you know, former boyfriend, in such a negative way and, you know, light and stuff like that. And so anyway, Mary's questioning her faith now. And there's one part of the movie where the jewels, so Mary drops out of the jewels, but they get another, a replacement for Mary. So there's still 3 of them. But they're led by Hilary Faye, who's like the most popular girl at this Christian high school. So Hilary Faye and the 2 other Christian jewels, the 3 of them decide to abduct Mary. And they get a van and they abduct her and they try and do an exorcism on Mary. Again, absurd, right? They're going to do this exorcism and she's going to come back to her faith and stop questioning things and everything will be good. And of course it's absurd and it doesn't work out. And so Mary's like questioning them, right? Like, I thought you guys were about love. Like, this is absurd. What are you guys doing? And so anyway, part of the movie, in this scene of the movie, Hilary Faye takes a Bible and throws it at Mary like a violent act, right? Throws this Bible and says, she says, I am filled with God's love. As she's doing this violent act, right? It's just absurd, right? It's absurd. But to me, it's looking at pop culture, it's a great reference to, this dominion theology that I've been talking about in this episode. It doesn't come from a place of love. It comes from a place of hate, right? It comes from a place wanting to dominion over people, right? Or banishing teens because they're gay, that homophobic, what Erdogan did out in Turkey, this fear of women and not having dominion over women. I mean, it's all evil and it's all absurd. And that scene in that movie really, for me, it really captured it, captured the heart of it. It's not about love. It's about hate. It's about fear, right? I call these people, like Erdogan, I call them the Turkish president, the lords of scarcity, right? Lords of scarcity and fear, because that's all they're doing. They're using scarcity and fear, using scarcity to create fear to have control and power and dominion over people, which is evil. So anyhow, as the movie goes on, they find out that Mary finds out that she's pregnant. She's pregnant with Dean's child, right? She's a teen mother. And then all of a sudden, something happens and the school finds out. The principal finds out of the school. And the principal had been seeing Mary's mother. So he goes to Mary's mother and talks to her and says, our relationship's over. We're not going to see each other no more if you don't banish Mary to Mercy House. You got to send her away. She can't be having a negative influence on the other teens. She's a teen. She's going to be a teen mother. She's pregnant teen. Got to banish her, right? And Mary's mom thankfully stands up and says, no, I'm not going to do that. I love my daughter. This is her home. She's staying here. We're going to make it work. And so then after that, so Mary's mom stands up for her. Mary stays there, stays in the school. And then at the end of the movie, Dean shows up again, right? Dean shows up, right? Mary's former boyfriend is at Mercy House. He shows up with his boyfriend. Now, Dean's got a boyfriend named Mitch. And they show up. And some of the other kids from Mercy House who went to this Christian high school show up to crash prom. They want to go to prom, and they come and they crash prom, and it's a big to-do. And that's when Dean finds out he's going to be a father, that Mary's pregnant with his child, and he's stoked, he's excited, and his boyfriend's excited. So anyhow, at the end of the movie, Mary's in the hospital, and she gives birth to a baby girl. And her and Dean, the parents, take a picture of the baby, and Mitch, and their other friends are around them. Skip shows up. The principal shows up with some flowers, right? He's remorseful. He shows up with the flowers, makes up with Mary's mother and whatnot. So there's a happy ending there. So, but again, for me, it's just a really good pop culture reference or description of the absurdity of what I talked about last week, the religious right, Christian nationalism. I mean, it doesn't come from a place of love. It comes from a place of hate. Doesn't come from the place where Cornel West resides, right? When he talks about justice and love. It doesn't come from that. It comes from another place, an evil place. So anyhow, I'm very grateful for you. I'm very grateful that I've had the opportunity to share this information for episode number 37. It's been episode number 37 of my weekly series, Sunday Weekly Revival, today. For those of you who are celebrating Palm Sunday, happy Palm Sunday. I hope you'll be back next week. I know it's going to be Easter Sunday, but I'll be here for my monthly mailbag. So if you have any questions, please submit them. Pre-submit those questions, and we can use them for next week, because that's what my monthly mailbag is all about. I take your pre-submitted questions and I provide thoughtful responses. So I'll be back next week, as I am every week. I hope you have a blessed rest of your day or evening, wherever you may be. And again, just very grateful for you, and thank you for this opportunity to share this information. And I hope you'll join next week. If you missed any part of this episode, I will be posting the recorded video. So look for that. If you missed any part, you can watch the recorded video. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off now. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.